69 GB News understands that suspended Conservative MP Lee Anderson has held private talks with the leader of the Reform Party, Richard Tice, fuelling speculation that the former Conservative Party deputy chair will join Reform.
Well, joining us now is political commentator Andy Williams. Good morning to you. And
morning.
They've both said, haven't they, they're not going to give a running commentary on any decision. But, you know, given that he's come out and said he will not apologise for this, it feels as though he has nowhere to go. And he could well be Reform's first MP.
He could, and I mean, Lee Anderson's not denying this. I think he's frankly quite enjoying this circus that's been going on for a week now. I mean, it'd be a really high-profile boost for Reform, wouldn't it, to have their first MP, to have someone, I know he's had the whip suspended, but effectively defect from the Conservative Party to Reform, and I think it would, for the party and for Richard Tice, put a stake in the ground for them that says actually they could be a real force at the election. They're polling at 13%. That's only 7 points behind the Conservatives, so they have a significant chance to impact the election.
Impact the election to what end, though? Because the Conservatives are at pains to say, well, you know what, a vote for Reform simply will lead to Labour getting power because there's no way Reform can get any sort of majority.
Well, and they're right. I mean, they are right. It's a real problem for Rishi Sunak and the Conservatives because Reform, they're very unlikely to get a significant number of seats, but what they will do is drag votes away from the Conservatives on the right, particularly in big Brexit voting areas, in places like the Red Wall in the north of England, where the Conservatives won a lot of seats last time and are going to really struggle this time. So it's a big problem. And I think really their objective is, one, cause some mischief, right? And secondly, take votes away from the Conservatives and drag them to the right.
Okay.
We've got the budget next week. What can you preview on that for us?
Well, it's all going to be about the extent to which the Chancellor goes for tax cuts, right? So it's been trailed for some time. This is the last budget before the general election, that he will want to make a big statement and, you know, put forward an offer to voters in terms of tax cuts. The challenge is, where's the money coming from? And actually, the latest briefings are saying maybe there'll be another 1% off national insurance, maybe they'll freeze fuel duty. I think most voters are going to say, is that it? Is that really it? That is not going to change people's minds if they're thinking, we've had 14 years of Conservative government and I'm struggling with the cost of living.
Increases happening
Absolutely.
around the country as well. It's all smoke and mirrors, this. So he either does it because he doesn't care. If they lose the election anyway, doesn't matter what state the public finances are in. That's what I can't understand, unless they actually think they're going to win.
Well, they're not going to win. I'm very confident now in saying that they are not going to win. I think Rishi Sunak and Jeremy Hunt actually are too sensible at their core to do anything really reckless. They're not going to go for a sort of Liz Truss, Kwasi Kwarteng bonanza, here's loads of free money. That's just not what they believe. And so I think they're in a really tricky spot where they're caught between the politics of it. They know they need to do something bold and, you know, something that's a standout offer to the electorate, but they don't have the money.
They don't have the money. They're under pressure to make these cuts, and they're also under pressure to spend more. I mean, here's the right-wing press this morning calling reports that they're not going to invest more in defence indefensible, because, of course, all this rising concern about various global threats, a big worry for the MOD.
Absolutely, and, you know, there's greater rationale than there has been in many a year to be investing in our defences. You look at, you know, Russia being on the march, we've got China. Obviously, security these days isn't just about boots on the ground, it's about cyber security, it's about hacking. So, of course, it's an area we need to invest, but it comes back to that question, doesn't it? We have a limited pot of money. Where is it going to be spent? So all eyes on the budget next week. It's going to be a really significant moment pre-election.
My eye was caught yesterday by the Horizon Post Office investigation and this inquiry, which just seems to be going on and on. And the one thing I just thought, Andy, is why are we still debating this? Why aren't we just not paying these poor people, giving them our thanks, our gratitude, and saying, really sorry for messing you about? Why isn't it being sorted?
It's the most extraordinary mess. I mean, it's a story of failure on every level. It's a story of corporate failure. And actually, we saw quite an unseemly back and forth between the former chairman of the Post Office yesterday and the chief executive. It's then a story of government failure to act swiftly and decisively. And I think, Tom Peck in the Times today, if you get a chance to read it, wrote a really good piece where he said, we've now moved on to the scandal about the post office scandal. And that scandal is that years after the facts were established, hundreds of victims still haven't been paid the money that nobody disputes their age.
And look, the government will come out and say, well, look, making legislation takes time. Well, it didn't take time when they suddenly had to make a treaty with Rwanda to prove that it was safe, or to try and get emergency legislation through on their flagship policy. But this one, which is potentially highly expensive for them before an election, are they dragging their feet?
Well, there is the accusation by the former chairman that the Department for Business asked the Post Office to, I think they said, go slowly, kind of hobble to the election and put this on the back burner. Now, the Business Secretary vigorously denies that claim. But if there is any truth in the fact that the government has been deliberately slowing down redress for victims of the scandal, then that is really, truly shocking.
Shocking, that is the word. Andy Williams, political commentator, thank you very much indeed.